Good morning. I think we're live. Maybe someone just give me a quick test. As soon as I hit the live button, it said unable to connect. So I'm not sure. Merry Christmas, everybody. It's Christmas Eve here in Australia. So let's just check the sound is coming. Very strange. I pressed the live and it said unable to connect, and a big grey screen came up. So I hope you're all good. Today we're going to take you out and about. We're actually up in Sydney. I think I saw Sydney showing earlier on. So we're up in Sydney. We're in a suburb here and we're going to take you out for a little walk. But first of all, I just wanted to say a Merry Christmas. We are actually going to jump in the yellow peril and just drive a little way because it's a hot day today. And I'm going to take you to a really pretty area and explain to you some of the differences, I think, between being here in Sydney as opposed to where we live in Melbourne. So I hope I'm not going to get any controversy, but because there's actually some really fascinating, obvious differences here in Sydney to Melbourne. Anyway, good morning. Anybody in?
Veronica Girl Kelly says hi, Steve.
Okay, my comments aren't coming up. So, hello, Kelly. Good morning. Good night. I think it's late with you, Kelly. Is it?
Nigel says Merry Christmas. Really enjoying the journey.
Thank you, Nigel. Merry Christmas. I really just wanted to come on today. It's Christmas Eve here, probably the last chance I'll have to say Merry Christmas to you all. We won't probably do anything now until after Christmas. So I hope you have a really good time. And if anyone's got any questions, there's been a few questions in the comments I wanted to address. And if you've got any questions, any food problems, any sort of Christmas stuff like that, feel free to ask. Sorry, when I get in close, it crops my head out.
Swamper60 says hi, Steve, and hello, Mrs. Steve. Hi, Swamper60.
Hi, Swamper60.
Petri784, hello, Steve.
Hey, Petri, how are you?
Boda says hey.
Boda's in, good. Merry Christmas, everybody. Super Merry Christmas. It is strange, I can tell you. A lot of people out there, Stevie Boys, who lives towards our Albury, where we just came through, will tell you as well. It is strange being in the summertime at Christmas, particularly if you were born in the Southern Hemisphere. It still feels a little bit odd, when...
You're born in the Northern Hemisphere.
The Northern Hemisphere.
Joanne says Happy Christmas to you and me.
Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, Jan. Yeah, it does still feel a little bit odd, but it's going to be piping hot out there, super sunny. We're all going to be in shorts and thongs and t-shirts. Thongs are flip-flops, by the way, in Australia, and t-shirts on Christmas Day. There's going to be no snow, no cold weather. It does feel a little bit peculiar, but you do get used to it. But I think next year, don't you think, Michelle, maybe next year, I think we're going to try and do a cold country for Christmas.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
Possibly.
So we'll see. It would be nice actually to be, 2 or 3 years ago, we were in Michigan for Christmas time with a dear friend of ours, or dear friends of ours, Shirley and Dave, and it was just beautiful to be around the snow and the cold. I know it gets a bit tiring for you guys who are up in the Southern Hemisphere. The length of the winters can be quite grueling, but yeah, trust me, it's nice to have a little bit of cold weather around at Christmas time. So a huge Merry Christmas. Any questions there, Michelle?
Yeah, but American Gal says Merry Christmas for Tuesday. It's 11:32 p.m. and my mum, Janet, aka Mama B, says Merry Christmas too.
Merry Christmas, Janet.
And Martha Markick says hello, Steve.
Hi, Martha. Hello. Merry Christmas.
Oh, Swamper60 says go to Iceland. They do Christmas and New Year's big.
I wouldn't mind being maybe in the sort of Northern Europe or possibly Northern America. We're not sure. We know it's a long way off, 12 months for us. So where we'll be, I'm not sure. But I'm starting to think I wouldn't mind being somewhere a little bit more typical for Christmas time. It is lovely. Sometimes when you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's nice to go away for Christmas. I know a lot of people that go away for sort of warm Christmases away. But then you're just escaping for a week or two the cold weather. And that's nice to do, but we've got hot weather for months, running up to Christmas and running past Christmas. So actually to get a little bit of cold weather, we could go up into the hills here. That might be a nice thing to do, maybe not next year, the year after. Go up into the hills, into the sort of Alpine regions of Australia where it's a little bit cooler.
Oda says, have you made pho?
Like beef pho? Yes. Yes, I have, Boda. It's all We were in the other day when we were in Lang Lang. There was a lady, a little cafe there, and the girls there were making pho, as they called it, but pho, as the Vietnamese call it. And they were making pho ga, or pho gai. I get confused between the two. Chicken pho, and it's all about the broth, Boda. It's all about getting really good quality broth, and I think that's what makes, and fresh ingredients. But the broth is the broth is the thing. I'm looking over at Michelle now because I thought she was just waiting to say something.
No, nothing to say.
Pregnant pause.
Pregnant pause. It says, Larry Lambert says, we are 82 now in Mexico. I hate cold weather.
I know, Larry, but when it's hot, you miss the cold sometimes. Merry Christmas, mate.
And no. Asking, do you use MSG?
No, I don't tend to use it. I've got nothing against MSG, Boda. I get a little bit of an effect from MSG. I try to avoid it. Well, actually, no, I don't really try to avoid it. I'll have MSG in anything. I mean, too much of any product, whether you have salt, you'll find MSG a lot in the fish sauces and things that you use in Asian cooking. So you've got to be a little careful. A real heavy dose of MSG can make you feel a little bit iffy. I think MSG has its benefits, and monosodium glutamate, for those of you that don't know what MSG is actually a kind of natural product that's been used for centuries in cooking, and it kind of enhances, just as salt does. It makes the taste buds taste things slightly differently. It gives that sort of meaty sort of flavour to food. So what they call it, marby. You got sweet, sour. Can't even remember now.
And the others.
And the other ones.
Yo-Yo Bar says roasted pork bone broth.
Yes, I mean, a lot of the furs we had in Vietnam, I tended to go for the chicken. So it would have been, they would have boiled the chicken carcasses to make their broth, and a really good broth has good vegetables and good meats inside, lots of bone and things to get the flavours. What are you all having for Christmas? Come on, tell me what you're going to be having. Michelle and I will be having a Christmas pudding. We are actually going to go very shortly. I'm going to show you the butcher's. We found this butcher's. It's a suburb or two over from us, but you wouldn't believe it. I walked in there, and there's an old guy in there. It's a real old spit and sawdust butcher's. He's just got one bench, and I think he must be in his 80s. We reckoned he was probably 80, mid 80s, and he seemed to be working on his own. He had a very small butcher's shop, and he was just cutting up the meat old style. He was very, you could see he was really competent with his meats. So it was good to see. So we're going to try and get a nice joint off of him today for our Christmas dinner. What's everyone having? Is everyone saying?
So Swampers 60s, you said before, it's about 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 here. I've had 2 beef briskets on my smoker for about 9 hours now.
Beautiful.
And then it says, bringing the briskets to my niece, she hosts Christmas.
See, how many of you on Christmas Eve are going to have the neighbours out there with the whippersnipper sort of cutting down the lawns, trying to get the lawns down ready? You don't get those sort of, you get this, if I went out there now, I'd get those summer smells of cut grass, but I'd also get this noisy. In Australia, where a lot of people mow their grass, a lot of Australian gardeners will use what they call the strimmer. No, it's I forget what we call it. The whippersnipper, and they'll actually cut the entire lawn. It doesn't matter how big the lawn is, so it's really noisy because you've got that high-pitched 2-stroke engine sort of blaring away. They wear the earmuffs. They need to wear the earmuffs because they're noisy things. But instead of just doing the edges of their lawn, they do the whole lawn. Not everybody, most people do use mowers, but I see it done so often, particularly when we're up in Queensland. The gardeners would come around. So anyway, yes, we're going to have the smell of fresh cut lawns for Christmas. How about that?
Well, Yo-Yo Bar says she's having Woolies to Ducken.
To Ducken?
And Boda's having pizza.
Pizza, good. Pizza. Interesting. Well, I hope you're going to do something special on the pizza. Maybe a little bit of turkey on there and some stuffing, maybe some cranberries as well. Lift the sweetness up. Make yourself a Christmas style. I think that mower is getting closer and closer.
Well, Yo-Yo Bar says buy a sheep, and Boda says a weed whacker.
Yeah, we do call it a weed whacker. We have odd names over here. Does anyone know? Are there Aussies in the house?
I think it was Yo-Yo Bar must be having to dock him from Woolies.
What is a gurney?
Ah,
What is a gurney? I can't believe. Is that picking up? Can everyone hear that? Because it's right. It's just there.
I can speak his neighbours here.
Yeah.
So Jamaican Girl says, I know I have Quality Street as one of my presents. He with the shape of the present gives it away, so plenty of chocolate and nibbles.
Quality Streets, for those you don't know, are a really traditional English sort of little sort of sweets that we get, or candies that we get, chocolate candies at Christmas time. They're really the tradition. We have them here in Australia as well. They've got smaller and less quantity over the years, I reckon. They used to be big tins, but now I know what Kelly's saying, because the Quality Streets now, they have like a hexagonal or an octagonal tin. So yeah, which is your favourite, Kelly? I really love the fudges, and I like the purple ones.
Ones with a nut in.
Yeah.
So Petrie784 says, going to the parents, so probably turkey dressing, mac and cheese, candied yams, and some other stuff.
Nice. Mac and cheese on Christmas Day. That's interesting. I don't think many people in Australia have been having mac and cheese on Christmas Day. There's a lot of tradition to have seafood here in Australia, so a lot of people will be having prawns and fish on a barbecue on Christmas Day. But I know the butchers, it was interesting to see the butcher. We're going to see him shortly, so you'll get to see the place that I'm talking about. The butcher was really busy making up rolled loins of pork. Now that's really very traditional sort of English joints. So that comes from the old country, really. But he said his biggest demand were for rolled loins, beautiful rolled loins of pork, lots of crackling on the outside, and he was doing a really good job. And that's what sort of, firstly, I thought, here's an old fella. He'd been doing it. How many years did he say he'd been doing it, Michelle? Do you remember?
I can't remember. He started in 40 something, and his dad started the shop.
So in the 1940s.
Yeah, because you reckon even if he started at the age of 10, he must be.
Yeah, he must be in his 80s.
How old he was.
So I love a ham at Christmas time. I love a turkey. The ducking that was mentioned before is kind of good. A turkey and a duck, or even in the past we've had a bird and a bird and a bird. So I've made a turkey and put in a goose inside, and put a chicken inside that, and a pheasant inside that. So the way you do that is you actually take your turkey, you bone the turkey out. So you take all the bone out of the turkey, so it's just completely carvable, and then you do the same with your duck or goose, and then you do the same with your other birds all the way down until you end up with a bird and a bird and a bird. The beauty of that is all the different sort of meats are fantastic, but you can carve the whole thing through. There's no sort of carving around the bone at all. You just carve the whole thing through. And if you go with a nice sort of fruity stuffing in the center, with maybe apricots and figs and everything in the center of this bird, it's a really good experience. I've probably only done that once. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Ola and Swanker 60 said they could hear the whippersnipper, and Straker said cut grass is not a Christmas here.
No, cut grass is not a Christmas in many places in the world, but here in Australia it is. I mean, there aren't that many countries that are in the southern hemisphere, so there aren't many countries around the world. The majority of the planet is in the northern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere, yeah. Most of the countries are above, so you've probably got like South Africa, some of them, possibly a small amount of South America. A great deal of South America is in the northern hemisphere. So, yeah, there aren't too many places.
Sarah Frederica says, I'm having roast lamb, shepherd's pie, and a few local curries. I'm from Malaysia, by the way.
Yum.
Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to you. I don't know how to say Merry Christmas in Malaysian.
No.
I know Sindan Philo. So if you speak Cantonese, Merry Christmas.
So Kelly says she likes the green triangle chocolate, the strawberry and orange creams. Yum, want to rip open the present now since it's here.
Beautiful. Now Michelle and I are trying desperately not to overeat this Christmas, because traveling we've eaten a little bit too much, so we're having good quality stuff, we're having small portions of it, and we're trying also not to have too much chocolate, which is, I know it goes against the grain a little bit.
So Melanie 67 says, just me and my white German Shepherd Bonnie, a wee chicken with buttered mash and meat gravy. Merry Christmas from Scotland.
Merry Christmas. Who was that?
Melanie.
Melanie. Hogmanay. Merry Christmas. You'll be looking forward. I mean, Scotland would be a beautiful place to be for Christmas, actually. I wouldn't mind doing a Christmas in Scotland. And a New Year with the first stepping. That'd be kind of cool.
The boat is asking, do any of you eat chicken joints cartilage?
Chicken joints?
Yeah, straight cartilage.
No, I'm not a big, I wouldn't eat, I mean, cartilage is what it is, basically. Unless you cook it and cook it and cook it, it doesn't get tender, so it's a hard thing to eat. It doesn't trouble me at all, but if it's not cooked correctly, it's really tough to eat. So no, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a huge fan of bone food. When I was younger, I used to be, like a lot of us are, a little squeamish about constantly eating things around the bones. We haven't got that sort of tradition in our family. I'm a lot more tolerant of it. I mean, I love good ribs, and I fully appreciate that you can't actually produce really tasty dishes without having the bones in there and the marrows in there. But I'm not. You're not probably going to see me doing the round the world tours where you're constantly eating nonsense that nobody else wants to eat. Only because I think when you travel, I think you want to actually. I know it's very popular to go and eat sort of, I don't know, anuses and things. You know, we have had that stuff when we've travelled. I know it's popular to do that sort of food, but I think when you're on holiday, in fact, what you really want to taste is the local food that is really good quality food. So no, in answer to your question, no, I'm not huge into the cartilage meats.
So, Yo-Yo Bar said, I used to go out spatchcock and do stuff for Christmas lunch for the customers.
Yeah, well, the spatchcock is when you open up the bird and then you can bone it out that way. If you do a boneless bird, you actually have to do it a little bit differently because you have to bone it out without actually cutting the bird open. Although you can spatchcock it and actually stitch it back up.
They also say, Yo-Yo Bar also says, yakitori chicken bum skewers on charcoal grill.
Yeah, I must remember, Michelle, I've got a question that came through, and I just want to do it before we go out because we are going to go for a little wander. Somebody was saying to me about profiteroles or eclair pastries compared to churro pastries. They're both a choux pastry, but what is the difference? What was the question? Do you remember, Michelle? Do you have it there?
Yeah,
exactly.
I can find it if you just give me 2 seconds.
So it was interesting because they were saying.
I've got the question.
Michelle will give the exact question, and I'll muse the answer.
It says both churros and eclairs are made of choux pastry. What makes the difference in creating a hollow inside eclairs? I mean, churros aren't hollow from inside. You'll either bake or fry them, and that's why for filled-in churros, we pipe out the inside with a straw and create a hollow to make space for the filling. On the same choux pastry base, when we bake an eclair or profiterole puff, it's hollow from inside, and we just let the steam out to retain the shape and texture.
So basically, why, when you do a profiterole or an eclair, do you get that lovely sort of hollow inside? If you do a profiterole, it's obviously round, you get that hollow. And whereas if you're doing churros, which is technically the same batter, although I'll explain that in a minute, not exactly the same, they don't puff up and end up with a hollow. So when she wants to fill a churro up, they have to put a straw inside and sort of like pull the cream out. Now, I understand the question. It's one thing, traditional churros, the churros from Spain and Portugal actually didn't have egg in them. They were generally just a flour and water and slight and seasoning. So egg itself is a leavening agent, has a lot of water in it, so it releases a lot of steam and bubbles, and it will make your pastries expand. So that's one of the reasons, but the main reason is if you take a churro batter, it's cooked in a very different way than you do if you're doing a cream puff. If you take the churro batter and you drop it into very hot fat, it's a little bit like searing a steak. You know, as soon as it hits that hot fat, it'll quickly puff. It'll increase in size because of the moisture trying to escape, the steam sort of expand. But very quickly, the outside of the churro gets seared, and which gives it a hard carapace, like a skin. So when it's cooking, the expansion goes into the churro. It's sort of like a donut. When you put a donut into hot fat, it expands, it puffs up, but then it gets a crispy outside. It sears the outside. That can't expand anymore. So therefore, the batter is forced inwardly, and the air bubbles stay inside. Now, when you do an eclair or a cream puff, although it's the same batter, you're cooking it at much lower temperatures in an oven. So when you do those, pop those in the oven, they're going to expand quite some more, because what happens is the eggs and the water inside create steam, effectively air. They make bubbles inside, it expands open, and then it forms its carapace or its case, and then the steam's forced back into the shell, and it creates a nice big hole in the outside. So I hope, does that make sense to you? Makes sense. So that's why it's really the cooking method. You've got very similar batters, and they can actually be identical batters, but the cooking method is different. And that's when you start getting eclairs or puffs that collapse, there's reasons behind that. Generally it's to do with the amount of moisture in them and how they cook. So I hope that answers your question. Now somebody else.
Just a minute, I want to say thank you to Straker, who's done us a lovely super chat.
Oh, thank you, Straker.
Hey, Steve, Michelle, thank you for your vlogs and recipes. Merry Christmas to you, your family, and to everyone here. Thank you very much.
Straker, thank you very much. It's much appreciated, and a huge Merry Christmas to you. Big hugs. And another question that was asked yesterday, and these aren't really Christmas questions, but they are recipe questions. Somebody was saying, when I do whipped cream, do I add sugar into the...
Well, first of all, they're asking, is heavy cream whipped cream?
Technically, yes. I mean, heavy cream, whipped cream are similar, although you will see in the supermarkets now a lot of products sold as whipping cream, which have quite a low fat content in them, but they end up putting extra gelatines or chemicals.
Thickened cream, it's called as well.
Sometimes it's called thickened cream here in Australia. Other places around the world it's just called whipping cream. But if you look at the ingredients, the fat content, or the butter fat that's in them, is lower than it should be, and the way they make that volumize, or the way they make that whip up to cream, is by adding in gelatines and things like that, whereas a heavy cream shouldn't really have any extra products added into it, any sort of gelatins or anything added into it. So having said that, whipping cream also should be heavy cream. If it's traditionally made, it should be, but a lot of the supermarkets cheat now. They actually put almost a sort of milky substance into the can, and then they add gelatine into it, and then when you whip it up, it gets thick. But if you actually get a chance to try thickened cream next to actually whipped cream, the whipped cream tastes much better. So heavy cream, whipped cream, very similar. If you can get cream without gelatine in, it just tastes better.
Mona's in, says, good afternoon, Steve and Michelle. Merry Christmas to you and everyone.
Merry Christmas, Mona.
Blue Sock says, hey Steve, so good to see you live.
Yeah, Blue Sock's lovely to have you in. Merry Christmas.
And Mona and Boda are both saying, good on you, Straker.
Yeah, thank you, Straker.
Sorry, a few more. Rory B says, hi, how are you? I'm
very good. Looking forward to Christmas tomorrow. Christmas is going to be very lonesome for Michelle and I. We are, and deliberately so, we're quite happy to be on our Todd's tomorrow. We're going to be doing our own little Christmas dinner. We've got a lovely Christmas pudding. We're going to have a little bit of a binge feast tomorrow because we can. We'll talk to all our friends and family over the internet. We're not actually anywhere near friends and family at the moment. We've got a few friends around, but we're going to be doing our own thing. And by choice, we've decided to come up to Sydney for Christmas. We want to get into the city in Sydney. I'll be filming in Sydney to show you around a city I've been to many times before, but I'm going to be seeing it from a YouTuber's point of view. So I want to, rather than just see it myself, I want to try and show you. So we'll get to the usual sort of Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House and filming around.
The Blue Sock says, I always wondered the cream in America is always so liquidy, but the ones in Europe are so thick. Yeah,
it's our dear friends, the supermarkets or the corporations that have tricked everybody into. I think what they do is they're always trying to find ways to take something like milk, you know, the premium product milk, which has all its fats in, and remove as much of the fat out of it. So they give you low fat milk, Now they can steal the fat out of it and basically give you water. They 2% milk, 3%. The more fats they can take out, the more other products they can make, which are more valuable, like butter and cream. And then they realized that if they actually took their cream and thinned that down and added a bit of gelatin into it, they could sell that as cream and take the fats out and make more butters. And butter is a premium product and sells for more than does milk or cream. So it's all to do with that. But having said that, generally you can usually find good quality milk, good quality butters and good quality creams for about the same price that you do for the rubbish the supermarkets sell. So we don't actually have to have these poorer quality. You've just got to kind of shop around and find people that are still producing, you know, butters that contain butter. Somebody the other day, actually, another question I had the other day, a longish conversation, somebody was making an Italian meringue and it kept splitting. And I said to the lady, I think it was a lady, what butter are you using? And she said, normal butter. I said, but is it butter? What I was trying to get at is it butter? And then a day or so, because this is the way the conversations go on YouTube, a day or so later, she said, no, it's an oil-based butter, like a pretend butter, a margarine of some sort. And I said, well, that is one of the problems. If you're going to make something that really requires butter to go into it, it's important you do use butter. If you use fake butters, they're basically emulsified oils. And so you're introducing a lot of water into, once the emulsifications break down, you're adding just a lot of water into your dish, and then it's going to split. So she actually then said a day or so later she made the same dish and used butter and it worked perfectly. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Danny Ollie says Happy Christmas Eve.
Merry Christmas Eve. I was actually going to do this yesterday, which would have been our Christmas Eve. But I thought we'd do it today because it is Christmas Eve. And I'm going to take you out soon.
Yes.
Make sure we've got plenty of water, Michelle. I'm dry already.
Yeah, I've got, yeah. We can top up once we get down there.
So, would you like to go for a little wander? We're going to jump in the Jeep. I'm going to drive a little bit, not very far. We'll only be in the Jeep for 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to drive a little way. I'm going to take you down to this beautiful cove that we found, and we'll go past Ted's the butcher's, and I'll show you where we're going to be getting our meat from. I'm not going to go in there because I know that Ted's an older fellow. He doesn't probably want me in filming, but I'll take you past. But I'm also going to talk to you about some of the differences between living in Melbourne and living in Sydney, because there are some big differences. And if you ever come to Australia, if you live in Australia, you probably know them already, or you may do. If you ever come to Australia, it's interesting. So let's, you ready to go, Michelle?
Yeah.
Okay, just finished my tea.
So when we'll be driving, we'll probably won't be able to answer questions, but we'll be 2 minutes.
Yes. You all ready, Michelle? So I'm going to unplug.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take that.
We don't need that.
I'll take it just in case.
Okay. So Michelle's going to take the power cable just in case we need it. I'm going to take my reading glasses with me. Are you all ready? Everybody ready? I'm getting out into the sun now. I'm going to pop you down there. Let's get the car unlocked. We should be all prepped. We're kind of prepped. You know what it's like. Lots to do. So in the car. The only reason I'm driving a short distance, everybody, is because it's going to be super hot today. And if I can just knock a little bit of the distance off. You all good, Michelle?
All good.
So Michelle's going to be monitoring the questions. I won't tell you well, I will tell you what suburb we're in, but I won't show you exactly where we are, because, you know, we're here for a few weeks, and much as I'd love to meet you all, I've got to respect the people that we're staying with at the moment, and they probably won't want people rocking up to their place.
Sorry.
Seatbelts on, everybody. Click, clunk, click every trip. So the temperatures today for Christmas Eve, it's getting up to the. You can see the guy mowing his lawn over there. So it was the neighbour. The temperatures today are getting up already into the 30s, so the sort of mid 80s. I think today is going to be probably into the. Have you looked at all, Michelle? Was it about 30, 35 today?
I can have a look at my phone when we stop.
Oh, it doesn't. It's not important. We'll know as soon as we get out if it feels hot or not. What are we going up? No, not this one.
It's up at the.
Still learning the roads. So the temperature today is going to be hot, and if I'd have taken you on this walk from the house, we would have had an extra 3 or 4 kilometers, and I think it just would have made it a little bit overbearing. And I want to get to this really pretty area down here, so that's where I'm going to take you. Is the sound still good? Can you? No, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go round the roundabout.
That was just a speed bump.
We have a lot of roundabouts in Australia, just like they have in the UK. The whole country revolves around roundabouts. I don't know if anyone's watching from Melbourne at all, but and maybe some of you, there might be some people that have never been up to Sydney, but just the feeling of Sydney. It's far more tropical, you know. The immediate obvious difference is it's hotter. It's a warmer part of the country, but it's more consistently hot. Now I just got to get across a bit of a double road here, and then we're just going to find somewhere to pull in.
It's nice and shady there, but it's on a corner.
It's outside someone's drive. Let's see if we can find a little spot. Not going to find. The other thing is the flora. The plants that are here are more tropical. You know what will happen today? We probably won't find a parking spot.
No. We'll see.
We're going to take you for a walk, and it'll probably highlight some of the things I've been saying. Just the difference in the scenery, the plants, maybe even the wildlife. Lots of nice kookaburras around, which is always good to see. I'm not sure if we can park there. This is a very residential area. And I thought when we walked down here the other day, oh, there'll be loads of spots to park. I think we can probably park here. Do you think, Michelle?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think these people are mind.
No. I'll just get
And if they do, we'll be in trouble.
Just get the bags out.
Oh. So, can you hear the cicadas? Can you hear the cicadas? Can you get my hat, Michelle? Wow. That is amazing. It's almost like a flock of cicadas, like the crickets, you know, put a hat on because the sun is so bright. So let's just give us a few moments to get organised. Michelle can get on the comments and see if...
I might have to restart this, but it wasn't showing.
Let me just have a quick flick through. Is everybody still there? Is anybody still there? Didn't mind that little drive, did you? Hi Shields, Merry Christmas. Yeah, we're going out to get some... lots of pommies live up here in Queensland. Once you get over the heat, it's nice. So we just got to
they're loud, aren't they, those cicadas?
get Michelle on the internet, make sure she's connected. Yeah, I do love the Jeep. We just love the colour. Yeah, the cicadas.
Oh, hang on, I'm connected.
Michelle will be connected in a minute. She'll read through your comments.
There you
Now look. Look at this. I'll just turn the camera around.
Yo-Yo Bar says snakes will be out catching some rays.
So we've managed to park over there. I'll show you the houses. This is typical of this area. They're on fairly decent sized plots. We're going to go down a steep hill. One of the things I noticed almost immediately when we got up into New South Wales, it was rather trivial, but it was actually when the floor gets wet in the house, it stays wet all day. It literally, you've got to mop it up if you want to dry it up. In Melbourne, our humidity is really low. I mean, it's so dry in Melbourne all year round, pretty much consistently. Even when it's raining, it's still very dry. If you get the sort of bathroom floor wet, it dries up within minutes. I mean, within maybe 30 minutes. If you get the bathroom floor wet here in New South Wales, particularly here in Sydney, it's wet all day. I mean, it'll still be wet when you go to bed at night. So there's a huge difference in the humidity. And I noticed that the other day when we went walking. Straight away, your body starts to feel a lot hotter because the humidity is there. You know, your body gets damp. So you've got to be aware of that. The cicadas are humming away. I mean, it does feel very tropical. This is just, this suburb is very close to an area called Oyster Bay. And we're going down to Oyster Bay now. Oh, man, that is loud, isn't it?
Very loud.
It's almost like a fire alarm. So let me just get this on a little bit more comfortable position, everybody.
The Shields Colin says, hey Steve from the Philippines, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Oh, I think I've said Merry Christmas to Shields, but
sorry,
anyway.
I missed that.
Michelle was getting organised.
Yeah.
Now I've got to watch because I don't want Michelle falling down the stairs.
No, I'm watching.
And I've got my longs on. I probably should have put shorts on today. Well, I can unzip them, I suppose.
Is it humid in Australia?
That's what I was just talking about, Petri, so I think you probably heard the answer to that. In Melbourne, it's far from humid. I mean, quite the opposite. A lot of people have problem with dry skin in Melbourne because most of the year, from winter through to summer, it has a very dry atmosphere. If you put clothing out on the line in Melbourne, it dries what, Michelle?
Oh, within an hour.
Within an hour, almost anything will
you can dry things inside.
Whereas here, just a day or so's drive north, you can get...
Well, the bathroom floor stays wet.
What I've just said.
Oh, sorry.
Michelle's not been listening to anything because she's been organising herself.
I've been organising.
Yeah, it was funny. I think the first thing we noticed was the bathroom floor was wet. You get to, you know, have a shower in the morning, have a shower in the evening. The bathroom floor gets wet. It's wet when you go to bed because the humidity is so high, and that just really strikes you when you're so used to everything drying so quickly. I mean, we used to live up in Queensland, so we do know what it's like, but I think actually, I don't know whether New South Wales is even more humid because Queensland has much more varied climate, and so does Sydney actually. Sydney has a more tropical feel to it, and I think it has a more tropical climate. The trees straight away feel more tropical. The air that I'm breathing here, and you sort of smell that air. It's damp. There's a humidity. It's quite nice. It's quite fresh. As the day goes on today, and today is probably around about getting close to 11 o'clock, I'm guessing, that heat of the sun will start to bring the humidity right up. In Melbourne, when the heat gets hot, it just gets drier. I sometimes hear people in Melbourne say, oh, it's so humid today. And I always think, no, it's not really, because, you know, we've lived in some pretty humid climates, and you know, it's Melbourne, I would say, though people do, if you live in a place your whole life, you will feel humidity when it's low humidity, but to me, Melbourne has really low humidity.
Mona says be careful down the stairs.
Look at these big rocks. Now, the other huge difference, I'm just going to stop here for a moment. Let's sit down. Hills. We're just about to go down here, and you'll see that there's a lot of rocks, big rocks. And it feels almost like a jungle, like a tropical rainforest. Sydney is really hilly. I mean, it's built on, when you get up towards Sydney, it feels like you're driving into a rainforest, like a really beautiful natural rainforest. And it's built on very rocky, even when you get into the city up towards sort of Lane Cove and places like that, there's a lot more very steep hills. I wouldn't say like San Francisco, I can't really explain it, but you might see it. Actually, you will see it when we get down the bottom here to the riverside, because you'll see the way the houses are built on these really solid bedstone surfaces. It's quite fascinating, actually. It's so different than Melbourne. I mean, Melbourne is really very flat. There are some areas where there are some hills in Melbourne, but it's generally very flat. And you'll notice that even more when you fly into Melbourne and you're landing, how sprawling Melbourne is. It just runs for possibly thousands of k's. Whereas here, look at this tree. See how it's just growing on the side of this rock formation here. And that reminds me a little bit, Michelle, that reminds me of Singapore and Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah. Boda asks, how are the mosquitoes?
Yeah, mozzies are pretty much here, Boda. I put a bit of repellent on before we came out today, before I started chatting with you, because the last couple of times I've been down this walk that we're doing now, I've been bitten to death. Yeah, you get a lot of bites. Have we got the mosquito repellent, Michelle?
Yeah.
Might put some just around my ankles, actually. I can feel already, because you know it's humid. Is it in my bag?
Yeah. Shields Collins says baking bread and watching Steve, what could be better?
Baking bread, hey? Just around my ankles if you wouldn't mind, Michelle. Michelle's gonna do me because I'm incapable of it. Baking bread.
And that one?
Chatting with you. Give it a little rub around. And having my ankles massaged by Michelle. Look at that.
Things I do, hey?
Things she does. But I can feel them biting. Bodo, that's an opportune moment you actually asked, because as you were doing it, I'm thinking, oh, I'm getting bitten. I'm getting bitten. And they bite. They're big black mosquitoes.
Let me put this back.
They're big black mosquitoes. So you can see them and you can whack them. And they sort of look at you as if to say, you're whacking me for. They're big, and they really chew. And you get those big bumps on your legs and arms the day afterwards.
Yeah, they itch.
They do. They itch. You've been itching for a day or so, haven't you? I can feel already. Look, even through my trousers here, I've got a bite on the side of my leg. So yes, mosquitoes. The birds up here are very similar to Melbourne. We get a lot of parrots in Melbourne. We get a lot of what I would consider tropical birds, beautiful parrots. But you do get, seemingly here anyway, I'm seeing a lot more birds than we would have got in some of the suburbs in Melbourne. Because, you know, there's so much greenery around. Beautiful. Look at this. Look at this, guys. Yes, this is one of my favourite birds. Look at the cookie up there. Can you see? Let me see if I can. Come on, fella. Sing away. That is your kookaburra. Very pretty.
So Rory B says, making your world's best chocolate milkshake while watching you.
Beautiful.
And Boda says you should get a thermocell, it's the best repellent.
Where's that kookaburra? You can see it up there. I love the song of the kookaburra, you know.
We don't hear that so much in Melbourne.
No, I don't. There are kookaburras in Melbourne, but you don't get them in most of the suburbs. When we lived up in Queensland, I used to get kookaburras always on my back porch, and they would come right up to you and chat and take a bit of bread. Now, here's another thing, mangroves. So the tide is in. And yesterday when we came down here, the tide was out, and you could see all the, you know, a lot of you will know mangroves. So you could see all the sort of, you know, the little stumps of the mangroves. Any questions there, Michelle? Sorry, I'm yakking away. Wow.
I said about, Jan said I'm a good wife, I'm a keeper.
You are, Jan?
No, I am.
Oh, Michelle. She is good, Jan. She is a keeper.
Oh, and Mona says I'm a living gem, no doubt about it. I like you people.
Hey. Hear the kookaburra? Now we've left. Oh, he's laughing away.
Swamper60 says, see any crocs?
You wouldn't get crocs down here, Swamper60, because it's too cold. You really don't start to see the crocs until you get further north into Queensland. I mean, during the peak of summer, you might get some smaller freshies. I don't think you get the big saltwater crocs down here. I could be wrong. Maybe, you know, I don't live in Sydney, but I'd be pretty certain the weather and the water is too cold for them. You really start to get problems with crocodiles when you get north of Townsville and places like that up north, where the temperatures are warm all year round. The crocs love it, and they'll come into the from the salt water into the estuaries, and they are big crocodiles. They're, you know, many tens of feet long. I mean, I don't know how big they get, but they get big enough to be dangerous.
So Rory B says, I'm watching you from Ireland, I'm a day behind you.
G'day, it's Rory, is it?
Rory.
Merry Christmas, Rory. Look at this mixture of houses. So, got a more traditional Aussie style, some of the more modern houses. This one here is almost, what is that? Almost Austrian sort of style.
With a tin roof?
And then this with the dark. Now, I don't know a lot about this region, this part of Sydney, other than it's, I will do some research about it, that it's Oyster Bay, and I'm presuming, because it's Oyster Bay, that there's an oyster population in the bay here. And we walked down here the other day, and there was a little building, it said butchers. I'm always sparked by a butcher or any, you know, butchers, bakers, any smaller traditional mum and pop type businesses. So we popped in to see the butcher, introduced ourselves. Lovely guy. He's an older fella, at least 85, I would say, and I'm not being disrespectful, because he told me how long he'd been working there. You know, it's a bit him and his father before him, and so we calculated he's going to be in his 80s. It's a real old school butchers, about as old a school butchers as I've seen in Australia for a long time, and we've decided to get our meat there today. We're going to get our meat there today. Now, I did say to Ted, Ted, wasn't it?
Yes.
I did say to Ted, would you be able to fit us in, because he was busy. You know, butchers this time of year, they are overwhelmed with the demand for prepping meats. So, and because he's a proper butcher, he's doing the work, he's putting the hours in, and he just smiled and said, oh, we'll find you something. And Michelle and I don't mind, you know, whether we have, you know, beef, pork. I want,
Yeah, so we're going
for a rolled loin,
but we don't mind.
because, mainly because he had the nicest looking rolled loins I've seen in Australia for a long while. Unfortunately, the supermarkets meats are not that good. They're mainly water. And by the time they've steamed themselves away in your oven, they get rock hard like little bullets. And that's not the way. A loin is traditionally can be a dry meat. But if it's done right and it's good quality, can you still hear those cicadas? If it's done right and it's good quality, it's one of the best cuts, and it produces such a lovely crackling. The other option we have, because I really fancy a good pork joint, would be a rolled belly, which again, it's not quite such a good carving joint, but it does make the most delicious cut of pork. So I wouldn't be disappointed with a belly pork rolled.
Nigel says Cumberland sausage.
Cumberland sausage.
Yeah. I don't know, were you talking about sausages? Did I miss that?
I love Cumberland. I wasn't talking about sausage, but maybe.
Getting back to the crocodiles, Yo-Yo Bar says no crocs down south, the sharks eat them. So Swampert 60 says, I see, further north is warmer.
Yeah, further north is warmer. Yeah, we're upside down. So, Cumberland sausages. Now, I did talk with Ted and said to him, you know, do you have any nice? I like Cumberlands, or any.
So Nigel said, oh sorry, my screen keeps going off. Says about the sausage. It says, wonder what sausages are like. Always a good judge.
Yes, exactly. Now that's the next thing. Whenever I go to a fish and chip shop, I buy the chips first. If the chips are really good, you can be, really good. They've actually made them. I mean, I know you don't make chips, but you do. If you make them out of potatoes, you can then tell. If you go into a fish and chip shop and the chips taste like oven chips that have been fried in oil, as they did just up here, by the way. We had chips up here yesterday, and they were, I have to be honest, pretty disgusting. But if the chips are good, I'm then willing to sort of spend money on their fish and their other bits and pieces, because it probably means they care. Sausages, again, with butchers. Now, one of the first things I said to Ted is, what sausages do you make? And he showed me them. They look gorgeous. They look absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, he doesn't really make pork sausages, so no Cumberlands, no traditional English style sausages. It's really fashionable in Australia to have beef sausages. They can be a lot drier. Certainly,
we prefer pork, don't we?
I really prefer pork sausages. I just think they make a much better sausage. Lamb does quite a good job also. But no, he only had beef, and he said the reason he only has beef is because he doesn't get enough pork in. People in Australia generally prefer beef to pork as a joint, so he gets a lot more beef in, so he makes beef sausages. But I must admit, they look tasty, and if I can get some, I'm going to get some today. But we'll see.
He might have sold out of those.
I got a feeling this is Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Could you imagine rocking up to your local butchers, or good butchers, on Christmas Eve? I know my old butcher that I used to use years ago wouldn't have given me a thank you to turn up on Christmas Eve and start ordering meat. Because if they're good, they completely run off their feet. But I did like the fact that Ted said, no, he'd get us something.
Yeah, we didn't need to order, he'd find us something.
He'd find us something, because I was going to order, but he had a list. He was old style butchers, you know, he's got a big piece of butcher's paper, and he's written down on the butcher's paper with a pencil all his orders. Heaven forbid he lost them. But I
Yo-Yo Bar says, I like a coarse fine sausage, I prefer a bit of texture.
Yes.
And Solon says, can you make red stuff?
Davey, for Christmas dinner, would be delicious.
Red
Dave,
stuff.
red stuff. Only Dave knows the reference. Dave actually is an accomplished chef himself. And Dave, on my channel, I'll put the link up later on, Dave and I made red stuff together, and it is exquisite. And probably something that most people should be having for their Christmas dinners, I suspect, along with popcorn.
I was going to say with a side of popcorn.
With a side of popcorn. That's what our Davey might be having.
Shirley might have something to say about that.
Come over here. Here's my butchers. Oh, sorry. G'day, how are you? Merry Christmas. So here's the butchers. Take the butchers.
Oda says, what's red stuff? Go onto the channel, put in red stuff, and there should be a recipe there.
Yeah. Classic Christmas fare. So here's Ted's place. And I'm not going to go right up. He is in there. And he's got people queuing and people. There's 3 people waiting. I'm not going to go in, not now, because I don't think Ted is of the generation he'll even understand particularly what I'm doing. Is that disrespectful? He's nearer 90 than he is 80, that's for sure. And the fact that he's still running his butchers is fantastic. And it's just him in there again. The guy is a legend, and sadly, because he'll close after Christmas and have a well-deserved break, and he's going to be closed for a couple of weeks. So we may not get to see him again, which doesn't upset me, disappoints me a little bit, because finding a butcher like that, I'd be going there every day. When we needed meat, I'd go there every day and support him. His prices, they're easily as comparable to what you would be getting in a supermarket. The quality, I suspect, I am surmising here, is going to be just so much better. Now, look at this. This is an area called, what is this called, Michelle?
Como.
Como.
Jacaranda.
So we've got is this a jacaranda?
Yeah, the purple one's jacaranda.
So we've got a beautiful jacaranda here. We've got a beautiful veranda with a jacaranda. And this building here looks to be, I think it's a hotel open for brunch.
Como Hotel.
So the Como Hotel. It's a beautiful, almost, would you call it? I mean, it's so typically Australian. It's got a tin roof. But it's so nice. I love this place. We just whiz through. I can't read your comments, guys. Michelle will read them.
So Mona says, I love your respect in not putting him on film without permission. Very cool.
Yeah, Mona, I just feel it's not the thing to do to barge in. Now, I will often barge in and film places when we're on the road, because 9 times out of 10, that's the way you get people to be more natural and things. But I think today Ted's going to be busy.
Very busy.
And I'm not going to be honest, get the best out of him. He's not going to be able to relax and have a chat, because he's got queues of people, probably since he opened this morning. He'll have a constant queue. So for a guy who is, you know, well into his 80s, he's probably not going to sort of want me rocking up with a camera in his face. Look over here. So we've got a beautiful oval here. You can see now why I wanted to walk down here. The cicadas. So the Como since, is that 1878?
Yep, looks like it, 1878.
So 1878, this building. I suspect it's always been a hotel or something similar because of its size. It may have been a private residence, because actually the houses I'm going to show you in a second just next door to it are all private residences with this gorgeous view. I mean, look at that.
Didn't Ted say that there was more shops? There was 10 shops there before, wasn't
Yeah,
there? The last one.
So back where Ted is on the corner there, it was all shops. His unit and all the units around him were retails, and he's the last one there. And I wish in a way we were here at a different time of year and I could go in and film, because I think it would make a fascinating story. I mean, so these houses, so there's the Como, and then these houses are all sizable properties, and they all look down onto this beautiful bay, Oyster Bay. So do you want to have a look at the questions at all, Michelle?
Yeah, Rory B says he's having your cheesecake for Christmas.
Oh, yummy. Which one, Rory? Bite me. Bite me, it says on the back of the boat over there, the boat.
He also asked what you were having for Christmas dinner.
Well,
he says, what do you have for Christmas dinner?
We have many different things for Christmas dinner, and I do like traditional, but I also like untraditional. Our Christmas dinner tomorrow will be down to our butcher.
Ted's meat.
Ted the butcher. It will be down to him, and if he has nothing, we are snookered. We'll be having, heaven forbid that I've got to go into a supermarket and shop. That I really wouldn't want to do. It's not on Christmas Eve, it's just the quality of the meats and things are just not going to be good. So I'm fingers crossed. He said he will do something for us, and by hook or by crook, I reckon he will.
We don't mind what we have, and he'll have something, I'm sure.
So my Christmas dinner, I'll take a photo and share it somewhere, probably on Facebook or maybe on the community page here, so you know what we end up getting, because I don't know.
Nigel says, don't leave it too late to get your order in with Ted.
I know.
Right, it's 11:30, so we're okay.
We're going to conclude this walkabout at some point, and then I'm going to sprint over to Ted and pester him for some of his beautiful sausages. Beef sausages generally, come on Aussies, you know it guys, the beef sausages in Woolies and that, the cheapo beef sausages are beyond disgusting. They are the worst example of sausages anywhere in the world, apart from possibly, and don't get upset with me in America, those tin Frankfurts. I mean, they're just so salty, and so, whether there's any beef in them, I have no idea at all. So I'm always a bit off-put, because also if you cook them on the barbie, as a rule, I'll turn this way so you don't get so much noise from the cars that are going past. As a rule, if you cook them on the barbie, if you cook them just a moment too long, they'll just be like bits of dry cardboard. And I'm really fascinated to see what Ted's sausages taste like, because I've got a feeling they're going to be really tasty, even though they're beef, because you can make good beef sausages. Pork tends to be more moist, it tends to hold the flavours better. The fats render very differently than beef fats do. Let me just turn this around so you guys can see what I'm seeing.
So Yo-Yo Bar says fresh prawns and cold honey baked ham.
Is that what Yo-Yo's having?
I believe so, yes.
If Tammy comes in, Yo-Yo Max.
No, Yo-Yo Bar.
No, I know if Tammy comes in, as she often does, we'll be getting the confusion which Yo-Yo I'm talking about. We're going to head down.
Stewing sausages, onion gravy.
Stewing sausage, onion gravy. Yeah, onion gravy's great. Good day, how are you? Merry Christmas. There's always nice bikes going up and down this road.
There are.
Here comes another guy, like just a regular.
Heading to the water.
We're heading down to the water. So, the only thing I do know we're having tomorrow is a very nice Christmas pudding. And I'll probably be making some fresh vanilla custard, and we'll have some nice ice cream with it and some nice cream with it. So I look forward to my desserts.
The Rory B says the traditional Christmas Irish dinner is roast turkey with roast potatoes.
Well, I think in a lot of parts of the world the roast dinner is very traditional.
can be here as well, that people will have it. But it's
Yeah,
a bit hot.
as I said, Ted's going to be so busy, and I was quite surprised just what the demand was. You know, there seems to be a big demand for very traditional cuts. So lots of racks of lamb, lots of racks of beef, lots of pork. Now the only thing he doesn't do there, which a lot of the butchers, my older butchers used to do, was to, I don't think so anyway, is to make his own hams. So he's not actually salt brining hams, cooking them and prepping them. And I think that's an opportunity. Ted's not worried. He's not going to start. He's not going to start doing hams now. I'm going to say to him, oh Ted, you know, you should start doing some hams. That'd be cool. Good day.
My daddy's naughty. That was for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, was that for me?
I think so.
My daddy's naughty.
So there's a question here. I can get the display out.
Okay, I'll stop.
Shields Collins said, hey Steve, just wondering if you've done a video on puff pastry. I can definitely use a quick recipe for one. I can't find any in the stores here.
A quick recipe, like a rough puff. I don't think we've made puff pastry on the channel. There's not really a quick recipe for puff pastry. The only way you can do a quick puff pastry, I think, is a rough puff pastry. So if you're looking to do something quickly, Google a rough puff, and you'll see it's just a simpler way. Rather than doing all the layers of butter, you're breaking the butter up and putting it in. But no, I haven't. I know how to make puff pastry, and I've done it several times. It can be a bit of a pain. Can I grab my water?
Yep.
Can be a bit of a pain making puff pastry, particularly at short notice. You really need a day or two to get it organised. So look up a rough puff.
And then Nigel says, turkey crown has become more popular, ideal for smaller gatherings.
Yeah. G'day. Morning. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. It says no waste.
What was that again, Michelle?
Turkey crown has become popular.
Turkey crown, yes. So you're just using the actual crown of the turkey, the breast meat and everything. That's quite common here as well. I do like to do a full turkey though, if I'm going to do. We've got this Como Marina. Now they're busy, aren't they? Boat House and Cafe.
Oh, the kids are off school now.
Oh, schools are out.
School's out.
It's our summer holidays.
They don't go back till the end of January.
Now that's something a lot of you overseas won't be able to get your head around. It's our summer holidays. Christmas time is when the children have their big holiday. They're going to be off for at least maybe 6 weeks. Some of the other schools can be 7 or 8 weeks. And so it's that time when parents are planning their holidays, trips abroad. It's very, very different. Imagine it's August, bank holidays, wherever you are in the world, if you celebrate that sort of thing, because I know different parts of the world don't actually have the August summer holidays, and you're planning to get away, take the family away, and on top of that, you've got Christmas.
So you've got Christmas, and then January hits and everybody goes away, so it's really busy.
The little fella coming up on his bike. Hello. He's like, rightfully so, completely ignores us strangers. There's a nice swimming Lido down here. So I don't know if anybody the other day we came down, there were people diving in and out of this water. It's all shark safe, so they've got the nets around it. Let me just turn the camera around. So they've also got a swimming pool just here as well, but they've got a Lido. G'day. The ladies all dressed up beautifully. There's that big waft of perfume coming past as you go.
Into the cafe at the end.
Going out for their Christmas lunch. So let me just show you this. So you've got a traditional sort of coastal swimming pool. A couple of lads sat down having a break, having a smoke. How are you boys?
Hello. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Where are you working?
Just
in the cafe. Having a bit of a break.
Just before the lunchtime rush.
Is it? Do you mind?
No, that's all.
Is it busy? Is
Yeah.
it busy tomorrow?
No, tomorrow.
Oh, you're closed.
You're closing tomorrow,
Yeah,
yeah?
good,
Oh,
good.
good on you. So
Yeah,
these
you
guys,
From you,
No, I'm from Melbourne.
Melbourne.
So we're up here in Sydney for Christmas.
What about
So,
you?
You sound like English.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
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 we
yeah,
don't lose
yeah.
that.
Don't lose the accent.
Long time ago.
Where's your accent from?
I'm Nepalese.
Nepalese?
Okay.
Same.
Same,
Same.
from Nepal? Okay. Well, hopefully maybe next year we might get to Nepal. That'd be nice. All right, take care.
Have a break before the lunchtime rush. Merry Christmas to you.
There's a lot of Nepalese around this area. Surprises me. Anyway, so here
The tide's right in.
the tides are up. There were boys diving off of here into the water. There's a net, there's a shark net around because you do get sharks. So it isn't super safe.
There was a little beach here, wasn't there? A little down
Well,
here.
mud, yes, no, it was a sand beach, wasn't
Sand
there?
beach there.
So there's a sand beach just down here.
And rocks here.
And even with the tide right out, they were still able to dive in quite off the top of these railings. And there's a train that goes across this track. It looks really pretty. Thank you for staying with me all this time, some of you that have been in all the time.
Jet ski.
So any questions? You've got,
And this isn't open till the afternoon.
yeah, this, once the water gets warm, this outside swimming area, you've got public showers, little water showers here. It's quite nice, just freshen up. Get my hand a little wet. I'm going to turn the camera around with my wet hand. It'll work. Lucky the camera is waterproof.
Boda wanted to know what kind of meat did we get?
We haven't got it yet, Boda. We're in the hands of Ted. If there is such a thing, we're in the hands of Ted. Whatever he's got, we will take. So that's all good. I'm hoping for a rolled loin, pork loin. I'm hoping for some of his beef sausages, and then we'll see what else he's got. Really, we'll take whatever he offers us. I'm hoping he might make some bacon. That'll be nice. A bit of home, proper bacon.
And Nigel is asking, is the tap water okay to drink in Sydney?
Yes, the tap water is perfectly fine.
All over Australia.
Some people will grumble about tap water wherever you go, you know. But see the jet ski going through there at some speed.
This little
So
boat.
this
Okay.
is Oyster Bay.
The train.
There's the train that I was saying about. And this is a very beautiful, never been here before. Well, I have yesterday. Oyster Bay.
Boda said, just got back from watching the Red Stuff video. You having it for Christmas dinner?
Yes, Davey's classic. He taught me that, and Dave, I have had it since.
We have.
Not often, mind, but I have had it, and I always think of you. When we came down here yesterday, you can see the rocks maybe just under the water. Can you see them there, over there? So when we came down yesterday, there were lots of oysters. So there were oysters on this bed, just down here. Let me just get near the edge. So you can see I'm stood here. Yeah, this whole area, as the tide went out, there were loads and loads of oysters. Now, what I was saying to you about before, how different Sydney is to Melbourne, is if you can see here, the houses that are built on this sort of cliff face as it comes down. All those houses have really steep land. Let me just turn the camera around. So the land is really steep, and they're built on multiple layers, and you see that a lot around Sydney. You don't see that so much. There are, now I know some people might say there are some places, but as a rule you don't see that so much in Melbourne. There's a fella out for his daily canoe. And then a jet ski in the background.
Boda said he's not having Red Stuff.
Not for Christmas. Dave is. Dave's channel, Sorlin, check him out. Great guitar teacher, great out and about, wandering in the wilderness fella. What do you call that now, Dave? Are you like Bear Grylls? The Bear Grylls of Michigan. Yeah, I'm dry. So there's a riverboat cruise going out there. Can you see? I think it's from Como Marina. You can probably take the little sort of flat bottom boats and go around this harbour. It's very beautiful down here. All the mangroves. Right, we're going to go down to the end. We're going to have a little sit down, check out some questions, and then we're going to close this off because it's been quite a long time. Let's see if anyone's sat in our favourite little spot, Michelle.
So Buddha says, are you allowed to eat the oysters?
Yes, you would be able to eat the oysters. I'm not sure what the fishing rules and rights are, but yes, you would be able to. If you got in here, Bodo, and got in and actually got diving in there, you get better oysters than the ones that are on the shoreline, I think. So you can see, I mean, you've got the boat houses, all these properties along the waterfront here, got very pretty boat houses. I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see them. Nice properties. Let's just zoom back out again. Whoops. Zooming's not easy with your fingers. And the river estuary goes up through here and there's all mangroves.
No shade at this one. You want to sit at that one?
No, it's okay. I think we'll just find a little. This is where we got bitten most doing the live streaming the other day. Well, no, we weren't live streaming. We were filming a little talk over. So I'm just going to get in the shade here, Michelle.
Okay.
Somebody's fishing down here. That could be interesting, is he? Is he fishing? Okay. See if we can ask some questions, shall we? Hey? You got any questions there, Michelle?
No, not at the moment.
So the tide was all out yesterday when we came down.
So we walked across here, didn't we?
G'day. How are you? Fishing? Good. Sindan Philok. Take a stab that he might speak Cantonese. Lei ho? Lei ma? Are you Gondong wa? Putung wa? So he speaks Mandarin. My Mandarin's rubbish, so I'm not even going to try and entertain him.
Marina says you could plonk down a sun chair and never get bored. Trains, boats, oceans and Ted's butchery up the hill.
You could. I'm just going to sit here. Michelle, can you get on there?
Oh, I can if I can get up the hill.
So, any questions before we go?
So Buddha said, what's your favourite cut of steak?
You sit on the lower side, and I can. Your legs are shorter.
Oh, yes, it's a lot lower.
A bit further around. Get in the shade.
Okay, you want shade?
You got shade. Your hair. My favourite cut of steak.
Bit of sirloin.
Boda, I think actually I'd opt for rump. Yeah, I think, and the main reason I like really good rump steak is a historical thing again. It's a steak that I used to have a lot when I was younger from a butcher, not when I was a child, but when I was in my 20s from a good friend of mine that was a butcher. And it just holds sort of good memories for me. And it's a gorgeous cut of meat when done properly. It's just one of the best flavoursome cuts of beef. Now I know a lot of people like their tenderloin and their T-bones and things. What's your favourite, Boda?
And Shields Collins says, love oyster stew.
I haven't had an oyster stew, so that's something I haven't had.
Nigel says, have you got a picnic with you?
No, we haven't.
No picnic.
We should have done, but we really just picked you off the countertop at home and came for a walk. It would have been nice to have a picnic, but our intention today is to try and make sure we get our meat order.
And Abraham
Now,
Chaco,
I could just let me show people what made that noise. I don't know if you can see. No, you won't be. Let me explain what made that noise. Sounds like a hoon. Kind of mosquitoes everywhere. It sounded like a hoon, which is in Australia. That means sort of rough, an idiot in a car driving stupidly. That, yeah, I think that's a fairly basic assumption. But actually, it's not, because of the hills here. A lot of the driveways are like this. They literally can be sort of 45-degree angles, some of the driveways. So that was just a car trying to reverse into its own driveway, and it's just skidding. I said to Michelle, it'd be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
It would.
Some of these drives here, they look like the cars would ground every time because they are so steep. And I've seen people driving out of their homes, and they have to get a run up just to get up these. Some of the cars just haven't even got the power. And that was a ute, a white ute, a pickup, and just reversing into his drive, and he was just slipping because it was so steep.
So Boda says, do you like carpaccio? I think carpaccio?
So carpaccio is the... I do, Boda.
He
Now,
does.
my brain fogs me, Boda. Is carpaccio the soup, or is it the beef, the raw beef? Clear that one up on me. Michelle could Google it, but it's not worth it.
No, take me forever. Raw beef.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the beef. I do. I eat that sort of stuff quite commonly around the world, and it's not called carpaccio, so it kind of has other names, and I do enjoy it. When it's good quality, it is good. The beefs have to be matured properly, you know, to taste really good, or really fresh and very tender. So
quite often they serve it really, for health and safety reasons, they serve it really, really cold.
yeah, and if it's
so
cold,
nice
it's
then.
got no flavour.
So,
I remember we had oh, what's the one we used to get in France?
I'm trying to think of that as well, but I can't remember.
It's a raw beef. Sorry, Mum. It's a very common dish, but my brain is not functioning. It's too hot. And steak tartare.
Yeah.
I used to have it quite often when I went out, which is also a raw beef dish. And I stopped getting it because, yeah, tartare. Thank you, Boda. Steak tartare. I stopped getting it because they used to serve it so, the beefs were so tasteless, but they also served it so cold that it's like red wine. If it's not up to sort of room temperature, and it doesn't have to be warm, but it has to be not chilled, then the flavors aren't there. It sort of kills it. It kills it on your tongue. The meat has to be at room temperature, and too many places for health and safety, they chill it and this, that and the other. So the only time I'll have meats like that is when I know the provenance, really know the provenance of the meat, or I make it myself and know the provenance of the meat.
Yep, that's
So I think we're going to wind up, everybody. We're going to head back to Ted's. I can't take you in there. I'm getting a bit dry as well because talking all this time. So I think I'm going to wind up, get a good slug.
I like raw meat, especially pancetta.
Well, I get a lot of people upset about making jerky with raw meat. I can't see any other way of making it. I know that for health and safety reasons, people keep insisting that you've got to bring it up to a temperature to kill any bacteria in it. But if you buy good beef, to be honest, you can eat it raw. And if you buy good beef, the flavour of good jerky is 100% in the fact that the beef is good and it should not be cooked. If you cook jerky, then you've just got roast, you've just got cooked beef. It's like, you know, once jerky is cooked and literally it's cooked through, then you literally are just getting cold beef that's been cooled down. And that's a very different product because the proteins, the structure of the proteins in the meat changes considerably. When, you know, Boda, you'll probably appreciate this, but when bloods are cooked, they change. The whole flavours of them change. So good jerky should not be cooked.
Dingo Prime says, hi, I love your show.
Thank you. Look, everybody, a super, super Merry Christmas. We are going to hit the road and finish off, get our Christmas bits and pieces. I hope you have a wonderful day. Next year, by the way, and we'll do some videos and we'll do some live shows between now and next year.
Not very long next year.
Next year isn't far, no, it isn't far away. Next year is going to be an amazing travel year for Michelle and I, and I'm really going to try and take you all along for it and do a better job at sharing it with you. So I hope you're going to look forward to that. Love to you all. Share the love. Michelle in shot as well. Get to share the love. Be good.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas. Merry
Have a good
Crimble.
one. Merry
Share down
Crimble.
below. Let me know what you had for Christmas, what you're having for Christmas. And I will let you know somewhere in the comments or somewhere what we managed to get at Ted's. Love to you all. Be good. See you on the other side. Take care.
Bye.